What's going on, everyone? And Parrish here with Bridge Hooks and stuff on this We in the Booth Studio Incentive Program. So, what's happening right now is it's going to be a breakdown of Pro Tools, just general information that you should know. First of all, let's talk about Pro Tools. What is Pro Tools? Pro Tools is what we call a DAW, DAW. So, what is a DAW? The acronym DAW, it stands for Digital Audio Workstation. So digital, just to break it down, is basically in a nutshell the computer. There's a lot of other things I can say when it comes to digital, but just to give a dumbed down, um, beginners, nothing about any of this stuff. All in all, digital is computer. That's what you're working on, your computer, your Mac or your PC. Audio is what it says, audio. So that's whatever you're recording, your vocals, your live instruments, even your MIDI instruments. It's you can turn into audio. So audio is just everything that's being recorded. Workstation is what it is. Your workstation. This is what you're using to do your work, to record your song and all that good stuff. So there are different DAWs. If you look at the screen, on my menu board, there's Pro Tools, but I also have Ableton Live. Ableton is another DAW. I also have Reason 13. That's another DAW. Logic Pro is another DAW. Studio One is another DAW. There's Pro Tools. So these DAWs, they're just different platforms. They all kind of work. I wouldn't say they work the same, but they all have the same outcome, if you will. A lot of the things that you can do on any of the DAWs, you can do on the other DAWs. It's just different ways to do it. So it's just based on what you're comfortable with a lot of times. But we're here to talk about Pro Tools, and so we're gonna go to Pro Tools. We're gonna open up Pro Tools, and we're gonna dive into some information on that. So let's open it up just to give just a general synopsis of um, what Pro Tools is. So what's happening right now? Pro Tools is loading what you would call plugins, and these plugins enhance your vocals, enhance your instruments. Makes it sound better, prettier, whatever the case may be. So I have a lot of plugins on my computer, so it's loading them. So on your Pro Tools, you may not have this issue. But what it's telling me is that some of the plugins that I have on my laptop won't work in Pro Tools, which happens. And it's asking to move the plugins to unread folder. I could say yeah, but I just say no. But this is really something you may not have to worry about at the time. But I just say no because I just don't want to lose. I don't want it to lose a location just in case I'm able to use them for some particular reason. So once you open up Pro Tools, you get this dashboard. Okay. So in the dashboard, you see create recent projects getting started. Honestly speaking, between create and recent will probably be the only things that you will probably select getting coming into Pro Tools. So create is basically you're just creating a brand new session from scratch. This is your first. This is either a brand new or your very first session. So you're just creating that. You have the name your session. We're going to name this test. You have create from template, which I will get into to show you how to create a template. But a template is self-explanatory. You have templates in Microsoft and all that stuff, and we all know templates is just an outline of what we want. Initially, once we start what we want to do, whether it's paper, whether it's a document or whatever the case may be, we know the template is. So in Pro Tools with templates, you set up your session, and every time you open from the template you created, everything is needed. You don't have to create new tracks. You don't have to do nothing like that. It's already there after you create it. it's already there as soon as you open up the new session. I'm not going to create from the dashboard. So the dashboard is just one way. Just to go back, the dashboard is just one way that you can start a session. It just pops up at the beginning. It's like a shortcut, get right to it type deal. So I'm gonna go ahead and cancel this. The dashboard is really nothing but coming up here and clicking on file. You got all the same options: new session, open the session, which is a saved session that's somewhere on your laptop or your external hard drive. Projects, we saw projects on there. We saw open recents. You see what I'm saying? So it's nothing. It's really nothing but the file option on the top menu. That's all that dashboard is. So I'm gonna create from there. But just to give some more info on this menu before creating a new session, the only thing you might need to worry about for sure is here, the setup option. So you go to setup option. The reason why you would worry, that would be at this point the only reason why is the only option you would worry about, because it depends on if your interface is hooked up right, or even hooked up, or just showing on your computer. And interface is what you would use to record your vocals or your instrument or whatever. But for you guys, we're talking vocals. So you got your mic. You have to plug your mic in up somewhere, right? So what you do is you get what you will call an interface. To have different ones out there. You have Focusrite, which is kind of a standard for beginners, even just recording vocals at home, which it's not pricey. It's a little red box. So it's called an interface. So you need to plug your microphone up into your interface, and that interface needs to be plugged into your computer. So, which is basically plug in and go. USB. Nowadays we have USB-C, so they have those where you can do USB-C or just regular USB, but you plug this interface to your laptop via a USB cord, which in all cases, any interface that you buy, it comes with the USB cord that you need to plug in into your computer. So once you do that, mine is plugged into my computer. I have a Persona Studio 26C. So you go to setup, you go to playback engine. Playback engine is basically how the audio is coming in and how the audio is coming out. So when you plug in that interface, most interfaces, if not all, have headphone jacks. So you can plug in your headphones to hear out the interface, or you can plug speakers in the interface to hear what's coming out. But you have to plug in your microphone or your cable instruments into the interface. So it's in the interface, into the computer. The audio is coming out of the computer back into the interface through your headphones or through the speakers. So I'm going to say that again. You have your interface, which is what you would need to plug your microphone in to get sound, right? You get your interface. You go into the interface with your mic, which goes into the computer because it's plugged into your computer. And then the audio comes out into the interface, in which it can come out into your headphones if you have your headphones plugged in, or if you have speakers plugged in to the interface, which would normally say like monitor L or monitor R or something like that. Main L, main R. That's what it would say, and that's where you would plug in your speakers. But again, my interface is a Persona Studio 26C. So I have to make sure that my interface is being read by Pro Tools, and that's with any DAW. That's with all the DAWs that I showed you. That's with any DAW. But again, we're working with Pro Tools, so you have to make sure your interface is locked into the DAW that you're using. And so right now you see Studio 26C, which is telling me that my interface is locked in, is being read by Pro Tools, and so now I'm good. So any vocals I want to record in the Pro Tools or anything like that, I should be Gucci. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and create this session, create new, and on the sides, you see that uh, symbol N. So that symbol on the Mac stands for command. Um, and these are what you call shortcut keys. So if I didn't want to come up here to file and use my cursor to select that, I could just push what it says, command N, and that'll create a new session. All right, so now we're going to open up a new session. Like I said, I'm just going to use the cursor because this is what you can see. And this is what you can do. You don't have to do the shortcut keys. So we're going to create a new session. We're going to call it test. And you see this create brings up that dashboard again. It brings the dashboard back up. So we're going to call it test. This is the very beginning. Down here, you have file types. So you have a wave and IFF. Honestly, they both work. They both are pretty much the same size when it comes to the size of the different files. The files is basically what you record. So after you record something into Pro Tools, that creates a file. So this is asking for the type of files that you want it to be once you record it. So the default is the wave. WAV is the wave. That's the default. But the AIFF is just as good. Like I said, the size of these are the same, so it's not like one is better to send because it's smaller or anything like that. But the wave is pretty much the default file type, so you can go either or actually, but just you can keep it on wave because that's what a lot of people look for. Producers and artists, they look for the wave files. Sample rate. Honestly, you don't have to worry about the sample rate. 44.1 is the default between 40 either 44.1 or 48 depending on the system. Pro Tools has different levels when it comes to their DAW. Anything above 48, I would say, is like big studios. Sample rate is basically well, yeah, it's like this the size of the samples, which your files are samples and everything, and it all has to do with the type of interface that you're using and all that stuff. So if you're working from home, in most cases, the interface that you have isn't, just crazy big interface that big studios use or whatever the case may be. So you don't even have to worry about anything past 48 kilohertz. All right, 44 works fine in most cases. It works fine, but this is one of the things to ask the producer or artist. Hey, would you rather your files the sample rate to be 44 or the sample rate to be 48? So, depending on what they say, this is where you will go at the beginning of creating a session to the sample rate. We're just going to stick with 44. In and out settings, last used. Basically, in and out is like I was explaining as far as recording into the interface that goes into the computer. The sound comes out of the interface. So the in and out settings, and we'll get into that once I open up Pro Tools. But the in and out settings, you have last used. So basically, that's self-explanatory. It's using the last in and out settings that I had the very last time I opened up Pro Tools, and which is my interface. That's all it is, pretty much. It's just my interface, the Persona Studio 26C. Your bits, 32 works. There's a lot to get into with bits, but just for creating and opening up the session to get to work, you can keep it on 32. That'll cover like anything that anyone could have if they're using your vocals. That'll cover anything, any interface, any system. It'll just cover all of that. So 32 is cool. Now you go down here. You have location. Location is where your session is going to be saved. So as you can see, mine is users and Parrish desktop. Really, it's that last one is to let you know where it's going to be. So this session is going to be saved on my desktop. Now, if I wanted to change it to an external hard drive, and I don't have one plugged up, so it won't show. But if I had an external hard drive plugged up, you'll see it on here. You'll see the hard drive plugged up. And if I want to save my session onto that external hard drive, I would click that external hard drive, and I would just click open, and then that's where my sessions are going to be saved. That's all it is. I have a folder on my desktop. See, I'm on my desktop right here. I have a folder. I click that folder. All right. So I'm just going to say open. I want to save it here. And voila, I'm good. It's there. That's where the session is going to be saved. But, that's just to give an example, just to show you. But I want it on my desktop. Click open. And that's where it's going to be. That's where the session is going to be. So I hit create. And test is on. It's now we're in. Test is on the desktop. The folder's on the desktop. Now we're in Pro Tools, and we're ready to go. All right, now that we're in Pro Tools, we're gonna go over these options in the menu bar again because it's a little different now that the session is now open. So, and I'm not gonna go through everything because there are lots of things that really doesn't concern what you would do. It has really nothing to do with what you would do. Is more for the post of everything, more advanced stuff as well when it comes to edits and everything, but something you won't have to worry about. So I'm not gonna go through everything. I'm just gonna kind of skim through it and then pick out the important things. So we're gonna start with file. Like I said in the beginning, all that's still there, but now saves, all this stuff is available now. It wasn't available when it was just a dashboard, but just on the desktop. Well, it's available. So save, self-explanatory. Save your session. Save as you go. Don't just wait until you finish to save it. Save as you go. Every time you finish recording a part, save. Every time you finish recording another part, save. Promise you it's going to help you in the long run. Because this is still technology. You never know what'll happen. So you got save. Save as, just like any other app, outside of music or inside of music. Save as is basically just either renaming and or putting a new location. That's all save as is. Save copy in. So when you start creating, as soon as you start recording, an audio file is created. An audio file is created on that track as soon as you start recording, right? And so what this does is it creates an audio file folder into your session folder. So this session is labeled, it's called test. So if you go into my desktop, you'll see test, right? And so there's already an audio file folder in there because just from me editing the video. But normally this audio file folder wouldn't really be there. Once you start creating, the audio file folder is created into your session folder. All right. And so with save copy in, now this doesn't happen too often these days. I feel like that's something that Pro Tools fixed because it used to happen a lot in the early days of Pro Tools. And not to say it doesn't happen now, because I've seen it happen, but very seldomly. But save copy in is your for sure just in case. So what save copy in does, it saves a copy of your entire session as is, right? So you're probably wondering, all right, so why do I need, if I got the session already, why do I need a copy? So good question. What the copy does, it takes all of your audio files, everything that's in the session at that moment, and it solidifies everything is in this audio folder. All of your audio files are in this audio folder because sometimes, again, this is at these days it's seldom, but sometimes you can be working on a song, and yeah, after saving everything, it's supposed to save to that audio file folder that's in your session folder. But for some reason, sometimes you can do a punch. Let's say you punched in a phrase. You didn't like the way you sang it, and you need to punch it in, right? So you punch in the phrase. For some reason or another, that audio file could be saved somewhere else on your computer. It could be saved in the documents folder or, just out the blues for some reason. Again, don't fret, don't worry. This is a very seldom thing. But after you're finished, after your ducks are in a row, your T's are crossed, I's are dotted, after you're like, all right, I'm done. The producer is good with the reference you sent them. All right, I'm done. I'm good. Save first, but then also go to save copy in. And what that's going to do is just going to save a copy of your session. You just follow the prompts. And what I normally do though, when I do save copy in, this is what it would look like when you open it. So save copy in, you click on the audio files. That's all you got to click on. We're not doing any plugins or anything like that. So all you got to do is click on the audio files and make sure that's saved. And so you push OK. And so what I do, I put the copy in the original folder. That way, everything is together. All right. So I just put it in this folder. And it'll save the copy of test. It'll save it. And it'll pretty much be a whole new session. It's a whole new session. But that session is the session if the producer and the artist said, we just want the session. We don't want the files individually. Send us the session. Send us the Pro Tools session. That session, the copy session, is the one that you want to send to them. Because of saving it this way, there's no outs. It's taking, let's just say one of the files went to your documents folder, right? When you save it, when you save copying in, it's copying everything, and everything is for sure, 100% for sure, is going to be in the audio folder. Everything that's supposed to be in the audio folder is going to be in that audio folder now. So that's the session you want to send. Again, I get the look of it because I'm that way too. Like, if I'm working here, why can't I just send what I have? But just in case, save copy in is your best bet to go if they're like, hey, just send me the session. All right. Save as template. I'm gonna actually do this right now. Let's get to it. Template. Set as a template. Let me create first. All right. So we're gonna go to track. New. We're creating new tracks, right? So 3-part harmony. 4 stacks per part, meaning 4 different tracks for each part. For soprano, alto, soprano, tenor. So we got 12 tracks, right? Yeah, we're gonna create this way. 12. They have to be mono because you're only one person. Stereos left to right. You're not 2 people. You can't give left to right from your being. You're just one person. So it has to be mono. Has to be audio because that's what you're recording. You're recording audio. This is actually naming them, but there are 2 different ways. You can click this addition button 12 times to get 12 different tracks, and you can name the tracks from here. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to create 12 tracks, and I'm going to rename them after they're created. So this is, you do the addition sign, like I said, if we're doing the 12 tracks, creating tracks from here, from the 12, and we say we're doing 12 tracks, and you want to name them here, you have to do 12 different times, hitting this addition button 12 different times to rename them. But I'm going to rename everything after they're created. It just seems a little easier to me. Then again, it's really not that easy as I feel like saying, but this is my preference. So 12 tracks, create. All right. So now I'm going to name them. I'm going to double click the first one. So we're going to go soprano. I like to do all caps. So you don't have to come back. You don't have to push OK, come back, double click. You don't have to do it all the time. You can see where it says next. It takes you right to the next track. So I do soprano 2, click next. soprano 3, and you see that they're being renamed over here. Soprano 4. Next, alto. Next, alto 2, alto 3, alto 4. Next, tenor. Tenor 2, tenor 3, tenor 4. All right. Voila. Tracks are created. Save as template. You got categories. I'm just going to create a new one, all right? So you have these, but I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to name it VGVs. Okay. Name it VGV template. All right, and I'll just push okay. All right, so let me do this. Let's close this out so we can see what we just did. All right, let's close this session. And I'll save it. That's fine. We're going to go to open, create a new. All right. Create from template. Template group. You see I did VGVs. I created a new template. Bam. And then there you go. There's your VGV template. All right. Double click on it. There you go. So now, once the template is created, the first time, anytime that you get a session, all you got to do is open up the template, create a new, open it from this template, and then you're good to go. So that's creating the template. All right. But we're going to close this session. No, we're just going to go to over reset. Let's get back to testing. Don't save. But that's a template. That's how you create the template. Now you're all good to go. All right, so let's go back to edit window. As you can see, this is what you would call the mix window. This is what they call the mix window. This is what we call the mix window. This is levels. At the end of the day, based off of what's going on, what the producer wants or whatever, more than likely coming here, it won't be a lot. You won't have a lot to do on this window. More than likely coming here. And especially if it's a thing of, yeah, send me the individual files. There's really nothing here for you to do for real. But this is the mix window. This covers volume. See, volume, this is the volume knob. This is your panning. It's your panning and everything. Panning only comes in if, I would say, panning, you only have to worry about panning if the producer says, you don't have to send me the individual files. You can just do a bounce of each part, meaning all the soprano stacks in one bounce, all of the alto stacks in one bounce, in which I'll show you how to create a auxiliary track for that situation. And that's when you would have to worry about panning. But I will argue majority of the time, if they're not asking for the session, they want the individual files. I will argue that. But this is the mix window. Just so you know what it is. This covers, like, you see inserts and sends and all that stuff. Inserts is pretty much what you call plugins. So the plugins is process your vocals with compression, even pitch help, excuse me, reverb, stuff like that. That's the inserts. Sends, it goes with inserts, but it's a lot more advanced than this. But this is the mix window. So I will say though, you can come here to make sure your ins and outs are what they're supposed to be. So the top is your in. All right. So the top is what's going in. Where do you have it plugged in? So like I have my microphone plugged in the first port of my interface, number one. So being that I'm going in number one, I got to go to the top, click on interface, and number one is selected. You see, I only have two. There's only two inputs because it's a little interface. So there's only two inputs on this. But I'm plugged. My microphone is plugged into the first one. So you go to the top, make sure that's selected. All right. Now, mind you, when you start recording, I would suggest do a record track. You can leave all of these here, but create another track. Let me just show you what I'm saying. And there's another video that's coming out that gives this example as well. But I'll create a new track. One mono. I'm one person. Audio. And we could name this, being that we only doing one. So I'm gonna label this the record track, right? So I created, and with this track, this is the track that I'm using to record. And after recording, I drag the files down. If it's soprano, after recording, I drag it to here, to the fourth one. I just work my way back up. After that, I record alto, same thing, and I'll just drag. But I have the record track, so I won't have to keep going one by one, record one by one, record one by one. No, we're just recording here, and then we're gonna bring down to these parts. So this is the mix window, all right? But we're gonna go back to the edit window, which is here, okay? And this is where you do all your edits, where you cut up stuff, copy stuff, paste stuff, all of that stuff. All right, back to the edit window and back to this menu stuff. All right, so bounce mix. All right, so with the bounce mix, basically what this does, once you're finished with everything, after you've looked through these videos and you've done your first recording, and after you're done with editing, all that stuff, and you feel you're good, you want to send a reference to the producer to check out, or to the artist to check out. So you will go to bounce mix. And what bounce mix does, instead of sending the files individually or anything like that, or sending the session, what a bounce mix does is it bounces down what you recorded. So after you bounce it, you can actually like take that file that was bounced, you can play it in like Apple Music or whatever. It's just a simple 2-track, and so that file that you bounced is what you've done, the reference, so they can hear it. So after you finish, you go to bounce mix, and well, we got to do that later because there's nothing here, so we got to do that. We have to do that a little later. But that's where you will go, and we'll get into that. I'll show you what it looks like and everything. But that's what the bounce mix is. You go to that selection after you're done, so you can bounce it, and you can send that via email, text message, or whatever to the producer and or artist, so they can hear what you've done. So that's bounce mix. Import audio, which I can go ahead and do now. Let me set this up real quick. I can go ahead and do that now. So you see me highlighting, and I hope this works. Hope this don't make me look bad, but you see me highlighting, and I keep a click there. I don't use it all the time for sure, but it's always in my sessions just in case I need some sort of metronome with whatever I'm using. But you see me click that, like I highlight that track, right? And I did that so when I do import this track, that it goes right up under it. That's what I'm so sure that's what's going to happen, but I hope it doesn't make me look bad because I want my instrumental and or reference on top of all of this stuff so that I can have the bottom half, the bottom parts of my session can be all vocals, and I don't, I can just work out stuff. So I normally put the instrumental or reference at the top. So that's why I click this. I keep my click at the tippity top, and so I'm clicking that so that way once I import the file, it's kind of letting it know where I want it. I want it under this click track. So we're gonna go to import audio. So I got a track on my desktop. I just gotta find it. Yep. I click it. It's let me know what's selected. I add it, and you can actually play this selection just to make sure that's what you want. You can actually do that. But I add it, I open it. We want it's a new track, and we want it to start at the beginning of the session. So session start. Please don't make me look bad. It didn't make me look bad. All right, so yeah. So you import session and import audio rather into your session. That's a way to do it. Go to import audio. You don't have to worry about MIDI, video, clip groups. You don't have to worry about that. Export. You don't have to worry about this either. But what I can show you is the bounce mix thing now, being that we got audio file there. So this what comes up, right? You name it. Glory and honor to the one and only living king. Reference. The file type, sending a reference. I always just send an MP3. One, it's smaller to send. It's just a reference so they can hear. So one, it's smaller. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space. If you select MP3. And two, it's a quicker bounce because it's an MP3. So I'll go to MP3. Again, you don't have to worry about anything else. Mix source, the main outs, which is the out of your interface. So you make sure that's right. Main out. File format when you're bouncing. So you have interleaved, multiple mono, and mono summed. So you want, if you're doing a stereo bounce, this reference, you want to keep it on interleaved. Multiple mono, what it's going to do, it's going to separate it. It's going to be two different tracks when you bounce it. You don't want to do that. Mono summed is take all that stereo stuff and just sums it up as a mono track. You don't want to do that as well either. So you keep interleaved. You keep that for the file format. Sample rate, you can keep that at 44. It's no big deal. Again, you got directory. This is where you want the track to be bounced to. Your reference to be bounced to. So, you can choose. I normally choose Dropbox. That way, when I bounce it, it goes right to Dropbox. It creates a link, and I could just send the link via text message or email. However, or you could just bounce it onto your desktop, send it via email. However you want to do it. Your external hard drive, it doesn't matter. That's just where you want it to go. Click offline, because what offline does, it's a bounce. It's a quicker bounce, pretty much. But if you unselect it, what's going to happen is it's going to bounce, but it's going to play the whole thing. It's going to play it. So you're going to be listening to what you did while it's bouncing. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Most people will say, I don't do offline bouncing because I would rather listen to what I'm bouncing just in case I hear something that isn't right. That way I can go ahead and stop it, fix it, and then bounce it again. So some people say, hey, I'm not really doing, not that they don't ever do it, but majority of the time they're not doing offline bouncing because they like to listen to it while it's bouncing just to make sure. I'm not necessarily that person because I've done listened to it more than enough times to make sure before bouncing, and I just do offline bouncing. That way, it'll just bounce. I don't have to listen to it the whole thing. It'll just bounce it for me. So yeah, that's bounce mix. And so that's how you would send the reference, just to make sure everything is good. You go to bounce mix. And I want to go back. I know when I opened up this session before, after I did the templates and everything, showed that it opened it up right to the mix window, and I kind of breezed past getting to and from the mix and edit window. So basically, all to do that cursor wise, you go to window, and then you see mix and you see edit. So edit is checked, is letting me know that's the window I'm on. But I'll go to mix. You see mix is checked. That lets you know I'm on the mix window. But we're gonna go back to the edit. I just wanted to, just in case someone was like, "Oh man, how did you do that?" Let me go back, and I just wanted to touch that. All right, so we good on file. Edit comes into play when you're basically editing. But a file has to be selected for these options to be selected. So just like you saw, it wasn't selected at first, and when I went to edit, a lot of stuff couldn't really be selected. You can select all, and if I had more tracks on this session, it would select all the tracks. But that's all you can do with nothing selected. But as I select this, all of this stuff is now available. So you can cut, you can copy. And again, all of this stuff has shortcut keys, and they're to the right of these options. They let you know what it is. So like copy, I just copied that. And the shortcut key for copy is Command C. But I just copied that. And then you can paste it. You can only paste after you copy. So yeah. All of this is right here. This is what you can do to these files. This is what you can do to these files. You can undo and you can redo. Copy. But we're gonna undo copy because I really didn't mean to do that. Cut special, we don't need none of that stuff. We don't need clear special. Select all. You can select all of it. Duplicate. You can duplicate the track and then repeat it. Shift it a little bit. But all of these normally work. These normally are shortcut key situations. Most times people don't come here. But for learning purposes and for what you see, we're using the cursor, and it's just always good to know where the stuff is anyway. Now consolidate clip. All right, so let's say you done recorded all these tracks, right? And everything's edited. And if you've seen a Pro Tools session before, things can be like spaced out. And I can actually do it with this track. So I'm using the shortcut key to cut things, so just to make it quicker. All right, so let's say I actually recorded this, and this is how I started here, and I didn't need to do anything here until this spot, right? So after, and that's all over this session with the soprano file, that soprano file, with the alto file, stuff like this is all over the session, all right? So you're in a situation where you're sending files individually. All you'll do is go to the very end, right, and select the track. That's the whole track, the end track. And then you hold shift and come to the very beginning of the track. And that could be anywhere. It just so happened that this one is at the very beginning of the session. But you go to the very beginning of each track, hold shift, select that. So now everything's selected. So we'll go to consolidate clip. And what that's going to do is make this one solid clip. As we can see, bam, is one solid clip. All right, so when you do stuff, create stuff, it's in clips, right? So you can see, because I separated it and all this stuff, these was the separations. This was the original. It's separated this way, separated that way, and separated that way. But now you got this. That's the new full track, right? All right. So anything that you do, any edits, anything you record or anything like that, it all comes here. This shows you in a sense what you've been doing over here. All right. But we're going to undo this. Undo that. Undo clear. Undo separate selection and undo that. So we're good. We back. See, it all went back to just one to the original because we undid everything. So that's consolidating your track. So let's select it again, highlight it again. All right, we're good. Mute clips. All that does, it mutes it. So now there's nothing there. Now if I play it, you won't be able to hear it. But we're gonna unmute it. Views. Don't really know. I don't know. Let me see. We don't really need anything here. This is just let you know what's selected on the mix window, which is those inserts and sends and stuff, the IO settings and all that stuff. So all of that is selected so that you can see it when you go to the mix window. This actually just makes the mixing. Let's go to it. Let's go to the window. This actually just, it says narrow mix. All it did was just make them smaller. I don't necessarily like doing it like that unless I'm like for real finished. Unless I'm just like I'm finished and I'll do this, but I don't do the narrow mix because now I can see more. I can see numbers. I can see if if it's peaking or whatever the case may be. I just see more. And so that's what that is on the view mode when it comes to narrow mix. You got the edit window, same thing. All these things that's selected, that's what we're seeing over here. That's what we're going to see. So tracks, this option is referring to the entire track. So that the entire track, that's what, when you see track, it's referring to the entire track, not just the file, just everything on the entire track. So remember, we just created a new track, so that's how you create a new track. You don't have to worry about grouping. Duplicate, and if you do duplicate, it won't just duplicate this file, it will duplicate the entire track. Again, this goes to the entire track, not just this file. The edit goes to just the file. When you duplicate on edit, it just duplicates the file here on this track. But when you go to track and you do duplicate, it's going to duplicate the entire track. All of this and all of that. Split into mono, all that's going to do, because this is a stereo track, it's an instrumental. You split into mono, all you're just going to do is just separate them. You're going to have two tracks instead of one just stereo track. That's all that's going to do. Making active is pretty much like muting, which I just showed you. But all it's doing is making, again, the entire track inactive. You can delete, but it's going to delete the entire track. So the rest of the stuff you don't necessarily have to worry about. Options. Now, options is somewhat something to worry about. So you have destructive record, loop record, quick punch. I would suggest stay on quick punch because, you've been in a recording session. Everything else is good until this one particular phrase you did something wrong. And it's like, let me punch in right there. So what quick punch does, it lets you hear, if you will, the pre before you get to your part that you actually recording. And, it just punches in for you to record. Loop record, self-explanatory. If you highlight a section. So if I just did that and I did loop record, all it's going to do is record in this section, but it's going to loop it. All right. Don't worry about destructive record. So we're a quick punch. We are quick punch people. Okay. Pre post roll, that lets you know how far the pre will be before it comes to your part. Post roll is, let's just say you were recording, right? And for some reason or another, while the track is going, you stop recording. But what's happening is, if that's selected, you're not seeing it on the computer. But because you're still going, it's actually, in a sense, still recording, like secretively. And then once you're finished, once you stop it, you can actually drag it out, and it show what you've been saying or singing when you stop recording. So that's one thing to keep in mind: pre-roll and post-roll. Loop playback. That's like I said. You got this highlighted. Once I'm playing it. All it's gonna do is loop it. Now there is a transport. There is a transport. Let me open that real quick while we're here. So, you see, remember when I said you had the pre-roll, post-roll? So here's the pre-roll, right? You can turn it on, turn it off. This is where you can set how long you want it before your actual punch, before you start recording. So pre-roll is off right now, okay? And I would suggest too, coming to this window and going to transport and opening that up too. Like before you do anything, after you open up your template, after you import the track, after you set the tempo and all that stuff at the beginning, I would suggest come to window, go to transport, and make sure that's open and in sight. So now, I don't have the actual tempo set on this track. Let me actually do that so this could make some sort of sense. So when you set the tempo, you got to make sure the cursor is all the way at the start of the session. You got to make sure this is 1100, all right? So you set the tempo. You see tempo right here. This track is 110 in particular, from what I can remember, all right? So what that did was make this entire session sync to this track, all right? So let's say 33.1 is the hook, right? We were just recording the hook right now. It's just going to start there right now because there's no pre-roll and the pre-roll isn't on. The post-roll is off, but the post-roll has nothing to do with what I'm showing you right now. But the pre-roll is off, right? So it's just going to start there. You can't catch that when you record it. So you have to put a pre-roll on to start it from the top. Or you don't have to do the pre-roll. You could just start it from the top and you could do quick punch. And while it's while quick punch is on, while it's playing, you could just push record and then start recording wherever it is. But if you want to do it a different way, another option, I'll set my pre-roll to 2 bars. So pre-roll's off right now, right? So I go down here, I turn it on. If you look right here, that's letting you know where the track is actually going to start. You see this little yellow flag? Pay attention to that yellow flag when I turn it off. It ain't yellow no more. That means it ain't working. But when you turn it on, it's yellow. So now it starts from there. See? And now you can go into record it. So that's pre-roll. All right? I'm going to leave that transport there. So pre-roll's on. We got loop playback. Told y'all what that is. That's you just highlight a section and it's going to loop it. Let me just give an example. I know you can't really hear what's going on, but pre-roll still on. So I remember I got the loop playback on, and I hope this don't make me look bad, don't embarrass me. Loop playback. That's what loop playback being on, okay? Scrolling. So this comes in handy on the edit side of things. After you're finished recording and everything, you're trying to go through your session and catch all the fade ins, fade outs, this, that. I have it on page. So every time it goes to, let me turn this pre-roll off. Every time it goes to another page, it's just going to go to the next page for me just automatically. Like that. All right. That's page. You could do no scrolling. If it's like, all right, I'm listening to something, I'm listening to it, but I just want to focus on this one piece. I want to fix this one piece, make this wave, trim this wave a little, bring it in a little bit, do the fade in, this, that, but I still want to listen and I don't want my screen to leave where I'm at. You'll do no scrolling. It just won't scroll. Them honestly are the only two you should worry about. After playback it makes sense, but to do what we're trying to do, we don't need that. We don't need the continuous. Center playhead, we don't need that. So the only thing you need to worry about when you go to edit window scrolling, no scrolling or page. Alright. Everything else in here you don't necessarily need to worry about. Setup is basically the same thing that was on the dash window. Playback engine to make sure, let's just say you're in the session and you got everything up, but you don't see a signal when you talking to your mic or whatever. Come to setup, playback engine, make sure your interface is selected, all that stuff. The in and out settings, most cases you don't have to worry about that because once you start your session, it kind of sets it all up for you. Your interface, it all is supposed to interlock. You know what I'm saying? Like as soon as you plug it up, as soon as you open up Pro Tools is supposed to recognize your interface. It's supposed to set up in and out settings. So like in my mix window, you saw that it was only when I went to the ends, it was only one or two. Well, that's the stereo track. It's only one or two, and you gotta put that on one. It's only one or two. So basically, I didn't set this up. I didn't set this up like 1 and 2, because what happens is the DAW reads your interface, knows what the interface is, understands that the PROTOOLS Studio 26C, my little interface that I have, only has 2 ends in it. So the Pro Tools will see that. Yeah, Pro Tools will see that. So basically, if you just in setup and you come down to IO settings, you shouldn't have to go to that. You really shouldn't have to go to that. But that's all that is making sure that your settings are straight to record into Pro Tools and to listen to what you recorded and listen to, you know what I'm saying, the playback. That's all you need to know about setup. Window, we've been going back and forth through window. But yeah, you got the mix and edit to go in between those two windows. You have the transport, which I said that should be open after you finish everything. And really, that and memory locations, like automation, bit counter, all this stuff, you don't have to worry about none of that stuff. Mix and edit, transport, and memory locations. Memory locations is this thing. And basically with this, you just set up markers. The hook, the intro, the vamp, the bridge. This is how you set up your markers. There will be an example of that on the next video. But this just set up markers so you can know where you at in the song. Now the thing with this, and I will reiterate this in the next video, but the thing with this, you have to do this manually. There's no copying this or whatever. So you start from the top, 1100. Cursor, I'm gonna go cursor because I know there's a shortcut key for this, but I'm gonna go cursor. You go to markers down here. You see markers. You go there. You add intro. So now we have an intro marker. So let's just say this is the hook. Let's make it 33. All right, you go to marker, hook. And so this helps you as far as being a little organized when it comes to things. And like I said, there's another video coming to where I get more in depth with markers and how it can help you in the long run. So you have markers. That's all. Yeah, that's pretty much all you need as far as these menu options are concerned once you're in the session. All right, so just to give insight on what you're actually seeing on the edit window The I gave a little insight, a little more insight, if you will, on the mix window as far as what you're seeing there. But just to give a little insight on what you're seeing on the edit window, in which for what you're doing, you will be on this window for the majority of, if not all, of your session while you're recording. So just to kind of give, I'm not going to talk about everything because everything doesn't really need to be, based off of what we're trying to do. It's a lot of advanced situations up here, so I won't touch everything, but I will touch the important things that you would need to know. So this area right here, and before I continue, there's another video that's coming, that's happening, that explains this stuff in more detail, because that video is going into actually recording yourself, giving steps and all that stuff to actually recording yourself. So some stuff that you heard on this video, you're going to hear it on that, which is good practice, just so you can get it in your brains. So on that video, on the actual recording, we're actually recording video, and there'll be more details. But just to give an introduction, if you will, this section over here, this controls the bed of your edit window. So you have grid, slip, shuffle, and spot. I would tell you, don't worry about spot and shuffle. It's some nuances in all of them, but for what you would have going on, all you need to know is grid and slip. And grid is basically it makes your bed snap to the tempo. So we have a tempo here at 120, and when you look at these lines, you can see they're blue. All of these lines are beats, so they snap whenever you move. If you look at the bars and beats, there's never no in between. We're hitting on the beat each time. So when it's on grid, that's what happens, because it's snapping to the tempo grid. Slip, if you're trying to go in between, slip in between. You see how it gets 6-3-7-5-1. You're not on actual beats. Sometimes you can land on it, but in most cases, this is just to kind of make it a little more loose if you're trying to do something a little fancy. But even at that, after using slip, you should go back to grid, because that will help you in the edit process of everything. This makes the waves bigger. You see the wave is changing on the track. It gets smaller, smaller, and bigger. This is the selector tool. The selector tool basically is you're selecting where you want to be. That's basically what's happening. You're selecting where you want to be. Also, if you hold it while moving, it highlights. So that's your selector cursor. But then you have the grab tool, and with this, it moves the entire track. It just moves the entire track wherever you want it to go. But then you also have the trim tool. So what this does, it just trims the file. So if you don't want the intro, you can just do that to trim the file. Same thing in the back of the file. If you want it to stop early, let's just say, you don't want it to go as long, that's the trimmer. All right. So we're gonna undo this. So, and up here, if you click above all three of them, you have all three of them. And again, I'm going to reiterate this on the other video when it comes to actual recording yourself. But you can come down here, and at the end of these, you'll see it's like little rulers, if you will. You click on, there's one by each track, so we want this to be a little bigger so we can see a little bit better. I'm going to put it on medium. I might put it on large. So if you look through this whole track, because it's a stereo track, there's this line. Well, all of them is going to have something like that. There's a line in the middle of this track. So when you go down, when all of those are selected, you go down. That's when you get the grab tool. You go up. That's just the regular cursor tool where you want to place yourself. The trim comes once you go to the very end of the track. See, now you got the trim because you're at the very end. And again, same as the very end of this, you got the trim. All right. So that's what those are. You get more details on that later on. This is, just gives you, this is your bars and beats. You can do minutes and seconds. That's probably all you need to worry about. You don't have to worry about this stuff. I would recommend bars and beats for editing purposes. You can actually type in where you want to go. I end up doing that sometimes. Just type in what beat. So where you see that's 88.2, I could have typed in 88.2.000 and it would have took me to the spot. So for editing purposes, I would say go to the bars and beats. This is the grid. This is the beats of the grid bed. So right now the lines are set to quarter notes. This can go all the way to 64 notes, and I normally keep it there between 64 and 32. But you can go from a half note, which is just maybe it's a little. You see how it stretches out because it's a half note. But I would say 32 or 64. Okay, and you just saw that's how you turn it on and off. But we're gonna leave it on. Stop, play, record. The P is there because we're in quick punch. Remember quick punch. So, but it's still record. And then the transport. This is all pretty much the same as this. And this is what you're seeing on the edit screen. What I gave is probably the more important things that you should worry about when recording yourself. And also, just to exit out of this, don't save it. It's fine. I also want to show y'all the folder as well. Because once you start a track, once you create a session, rather, you don't really get to see that folder. It goes straight to your session. So this is what you should see and what you will see when you create a session. So remember, the name of our session was called test. So this is the folder for the session that was created on the desktop. So in that folder, this is how you will actually get into the session. So if Pro Tools is closed, you double click the PTX file. That's how you get into the session. There's also an audio files folder, and as you can see, that track is in there. So it's a left and right. It's a stereo track. That's why it's broken down left and right like that. But this is the track that's important to the session. If we would have had vocals and all that stuff, it would have been vocals all up and down here. Audio, soprano, whatever it's labeled. We would have saw it all in here, but we didn't record anything. We have the session file backup folder, in which the session file backup folder comes in handy. You may be working, something could happen to where the session closes or the computer closes. It could be a glitch or it could be you. But either way, something happened. So what ends up happening while you're working, and definitely the longer you're working, the more backups it makes. So it starts to back up at different times during your work process. So this comes in handy, like I said, if something happened to where you didn't get the last bit, like you didn't even know what happened till you opened up the session the next day and you knew you recorded something, but you don't see it or hear it, you can go to session backup. A lot of times it gets you what you need. A lot of time I've used it, and even if it's not the final thing that I came up with, is very close to that final piece. So if I gotta re-record something, I'm not working too hard because of the backup. It got me good. So, but a lot of times you're straight. So that's what the session file backups is. So it's pretty much the same thing, PTX, and all you got to do is just click on them and open them. And also with Pro Tools, you're going to need an iLok subscription. I'm not sure if you already know that, but you need an iLok subscription. And iLok these days, it used to be, I think they still sell them, but it used to be you had to plug them into your computer. It was like a little jump drive. So you had to plug them into your computer, and that was the only way Pro Tools will open. But these days we have the cloud. So once you get your subscription, you can get the iLok cloud, And what it does is takes you to where you have to download this, which is called the iLock License Manager. And once you download it, you can open it. It'll have your Pro Tools. You can put your Pro Tools info in there and all that stuff. And being that it's on the cloud, it just, once you open up Pro Tools, a message will pop up, let you know the iLock cloud is working. So definitely look into the iLock if you haven't already. And I'm thinking you guys already have Pro Tools, so I'm thinking you guys are already straight with that. But just in case, iLock is important. So yeah, there we are. Introduction. Aunt Parrish's introduction to Pro Tools.